To test for light reaction reflex, you'll be using a pen light and shining it into your patient's pupils to look for dilation and constriction. We'll test two different kinds of reflexes, direct pupillary reflex and consensual pupillary reflex. To examine for direct pupillary reflex, you'll take your pen light and shine it directly into the eye that you're examining, like so. When you shine the light into each eye, you're looking for pupillary constriction so that it keeps out ambient light and the pen light. To test for consensual pupillary reflex, you'll shine your light into the opposite eye that you're testing. Even though you're shining the light into the opposite eye, that eye that you're testing should constrict as well. This is because your pupils conduct the light stimulus to your brain, to your midbrain, and the midbrain reacts accordingly for both eyes. So to test for consensual pupillary reflex in the patient's left eye, I will shine my pen light into the right eye. And vice versa for his right eye.
Now we're going to repeat the exact same test, but this time a little closer so you can actually see what's going on. So to begin, we'll start with the direct test. We're going to be shining the light directly into the patient's eye. We're going to begin by starting on the patient's eye, right eye, which is going to be on the left side of the screen. So a direct test to the patient's right eye. And as you can tell, the pupil is going to be initially dilated, and as soon as I begin, it should constrict, and as soon as the light stops, it'll dilate again. And we're going to repeat the exact same thing on the other side. And the patient's eye responses are great. Next, we're going to be testing his consensual eye movement, pupillary response. So, for this one, I'm going to be shining on the patient's right side, so the left side of the screen, but watch the other eye instead, and make sure that it is going to constrict as well. And yes, you can tell that as I shine the light in the patient's right eye, patient's left eye is actually going to constrict. And this is consensual constriction. And again, we'll test out his left eye, which will be on the right side of the screen. So watch his opposite eye. And again, the pupil is going to constrict and then dilate as soon as the light stops. Did the physical exam, and now let's actually go through what the physical exam is going to be testing. So we're going to be dealing with two nerves, which is going to be the optic nerve, cranial nerve 2, or the oculomotor nerve, which is going to be cranial nerve 3. So I already wrote out the function. So the optic nerve is going to bring information from the eye to the brain. And then the oculomotor is going to go from the brain to the pupil. And that's actually going to cause the constriction. So that's the motor aspect of it. So where does this lead us? So why actually did we do what we did? So I gave you an example question here. We shine a direct light into the right eye, and it is not working. So typically, it should constrict that pupil, but in this example, our right eye is not constricting. So what is wrong? Well, we have our right eye, and I drew out the optic nerve, and this is for another subject, and we'll go over that in a different video. But to begin, the light is going to go from the pen light to the eye. It's going to go to the optic nerve, to the brain, and the brain's going to realize that it needs to be constricted, send an impulse to the oculomotor nerve, and cause pupillary constriction. But that is not working. So we either have a sensory optic nerve problem or a motor oculomotor problem. So how do we know? That is why we use the consensual test, which is going to be testing a light shown in the left eye. And what that's going to do is it's going to cause the optic nerve to send impulse to the brain, realize that something bright is in your eye, and cause constriction in both eyes as well. Not only just the left, but also in the right, because your brain can't pick up that it's just in your left eye. So what it's going to do is it's going to send that motor reflex through the oculomotor to the left and right eye. If the right eye is able to pupillary constrict when shown in the left eye, it means that our oculomotor nerve to that right eye is still working. So we know that the oculomotor nerve works. And if we know that oculomotor nerve works, then we know that it must be the optic nerve on that right side that isn't working correctly. And that's what's causing the no constriction. Vice versa, if we shine a light in the right eye again, in our example, then we should see a pupillary constriction in the right side and the left side. So if we're going to draw a pen light in and it's going to shine light in that right eye, then we should see impulses go to the brain and then impulse sent to the right eye to tell it to constrict and to the left eye. However, in this example that I gave, we've kind of honed in that it's the optic problem, so this right eye can't tell that there's light being shown in it, so nothing is going to actually happen on the left side. And those are two verification ways that you can determine that it was indeed an optic sensory problem on the right side.